American Vampire Volume 5, Part 2, The Blacklist. Written by Scott Snyder, art by Rafael, Albuquerque. Okay, American Vampire Volume 5, Part 2, The Blacklist. This is the final story arc in the first cycle of American Vampire. After this story arc, Scott Snyder took about a year or so off before he finally came back with the second cycle of American Vampire, and he continued the story. So it's a big one. It's basically a little bit of a conclusion in this volume. A lot of characters' story arcs are going to come to an end, and then we're going to have an issue where we're going to set up a lot of stuff for the future. We're going to learn about this new character called the Gray Trader, who's very mysterious, and we're going to tease of him and how he's going to play into the future of this series. So a lot of very interesting things happening in this volume. Let's dive into it. The Blacklist. Issue 28, The Blacklist, Part 1 of 6. The story is continuing on in 1954. Previously in Volume 4, Henry was at his home and he opened his door to a door-to-door salesman that was secretly a Carpathian vampire. And that vampire bit into Henry and left him for dead. Well, picking up 2 days after that, Pearl is getting revenge and has hunted that salesman vampire down responsible for attacking her husband. And she has that vampire in the back of her trunk. She drives up to the Hollywood sign and opens the trunk and asks the vampire how they found her and Henry. The salesman vampire is not talking though. He says he'll never talk. Pearl figured as much. She says, "I just wanted somewhere nice to watch you burn." The sun eventually rises and then it burns and kills that vampire. Later on at the LA County Hospital, Pearl arrives and Calvin Poole is there waiting for her. They say hello to each other and hug. She thanks Calvin for being here for her and Henry right now. They go into the hospital room to see Henry and see that he is badly injured and he's ghostly pale. He may not live through this. Calvin asks Pearl, did you ever think of turning him? Pearl explains that Henry made her promise him to never turn him this way, just because she was afraid of losing him. A doctor walks into the room. He's not Henry's regular doctor. He says that they need to move Henry to intensive care. Pearl says that if that's what Henry's regular doctor, Dr. Parks, thinks, then she's fine with it. The doctor in the room says, yes, he does say that. And Pearl stops the doctor and says, Dr. Parks is a she, not a he. It's clear Pearl has caught this doctor in a lie. The fake doctor and his 2 nurses turn into Carpathian vampires and attack them. Pearl and Calvin fight them off. Calvin stabs one of the nurses in the head with a scalpel. Pearl slashes the fake doctor's head off, and she tosses one of the fake nurses out the window into the sun. Calvin tells Pearl that they should move Henry to the VMS headquarters for safekeeping for now. So later on, Henry has been moved beneath the Griffith Observatory in LA, which serves as the West Coast headquarters of the VMS. There, Calvin introduces Pearl to an Agent Bixby. Agent Bixby leads the West Coast division of the VMS here in Los Angeles. Bixby shows them around the VMS facility. We see all these skeletons preserved in large tubes and on display. Bixby then takes them to where Henry is being cared for now. Bixby says that Henry's in good hands here. Pearl cries. She feels better now, seeing Henry's being helped. Bixby tells Pearl that the vampires that attacked Henry belonged to a large coven right here in LA. And the VMS believes that whoever the leader of this coven is, he has connections to elite Hollywood and may have some link to the coven that was led by B.D. Bloke that her and Henry eliminated back in 1925. Bixby asks for Pearl's help to eliminate this coven. He's lost 5 agents in the last 3 months to them alone. Bixby says that they keep a blacklist of some of Hollywood's most powerful players, all whom the VMS suspects of hiding vampires in their homes. He wants her to investigate and eliminate any vampires they find. Agent Bixby tells Pearl that she would be working with a partner on this case, and in walks Agent Skinner Sweet, wearing a tie, trench coat, and fedora, looking like the most stereotypical 1950s detective ever. Pearl, surprised, says, "But you're dead." The last Pearl saw Skinner Sweet was in Volume 3 during the Ghost War story arc in Taipan. Pearl assumed that Skinner was dead. Skinner tells her, "What's the old quote? It seems rumors of my death have been a great pile of bullshit." Pearl asks how he survived, and what is he doing working for the VMS now? Bixby and Skinner ignore that question and just move on to their mission briefing and pitch Pearl on helping out. Pearl says that she's in, but only if Calvin stays and watches over Henry for her. Calvin agrees. Pearl and Skinner, they grab some guns, and Pearl says to Skinner, "Let's do this, Agent Sweet. Let's kill them all." Issue 29, The Blacklist, Part 2 of 6. So Pearl and Skinner are working together for the VMS, trying to get rid of some vampires and vampire supporters in Hollywood. They arrive at the home of Hollywood producer Wells White. They are talking to Mr. White's butler. They claim they work for the government, for the House Un-American Activities Committee, and they have an appointment with this Mr. White. For some cultural context, around this time period in American history, the House Un-American Activities Committee was a real committee that would investigate Americans suspected of being communist, supporting communist, or having communist ties. And the Hollywood Blacklist was also a real thing that involved the practice of denying employment to entertainment industry professionals believed to be or to have been communist or communist sympathizers. So in this case, Pearl and Skinner are supposedly working for the House Un-American Activities Committee, but instead of looking for communists, they're looking for vamps. Pearl and Skinner are welcomed into this Wells White's mansion. It's very palatial and big. Wells White makes a joke to his butler, "Shoot them, execute them on the porch." He then laughs and says, "I'm only joking, of course. You may enter my home and you are welcome as guests, Agent Sweet and Jones." Mr. White leads them into his backyard. He says he has to feed his cats. Mr. White picks up some meat and he throws it to his cats, which are actually lions he keeps as pets in his backyard. So in the distance, we see Mr. White's butler trying to sneak a vampire out in a parked car off Mr. White's property. Well, Pearl and Skinner, they notice this, and pleasantries are now over. Pearl and Skinner know something is up. Pearl begins running for the limo, and Mr. White opens the cage and releases the lions to attack Skinner. One of the lions jumps on Skinner and he kicks it in the face. Now we see Pearl, she's running at the limo. The butler attempts to shoot her and he yells, "Die, you filthy animal!" Pearl picks up the butler and tosses him at the car that's attempting to drive away, breaking the car's glass. The car with the broken glass is now letting sunlight in, and the vampire inside that was trying to escape is now burning. Back over to Skinner. He is wrestling the lions. He manages to toss some of the lions aside and he stabs and claws into them, killing them. Mr. Wells White is now nervous. He didn't know Pearl and Skinner were American vampires and so powerful. He cowers before them now. Pearl rejoins Skinner, and they question Mr. White. Mr. White says that he'll tell them all he knows. But then he gets shot by a sniper before he can talk. Pearl and Skinner see another car in the distance drive off. It must have been the car that the sniper was in, and he's now getting away. The sniper is too far for them to catch up to. Pearl and Skinner, they decide that they better leave this mansion before the cops arrive. They begin driving away. In the car, Pearl finally asks Skinner what happened to him. He evades the question though, tells her, "Last I remember, you left me dead on a rock in the Jap plans, and now you care about me?" Pearl just says that they should go. Back at the VMS West Coast headquarters, Pearl is checking in on Henry. Henry is still in bad shape. Pearl, she then talks to Agent Bixby, and she asks him what does the VMS have on Skinner's suite? Why is he working for them? Agent Bixby reveals that the VMS installed something called a Pavel Release Valve, or PRV. It was named after Dr. Eric Pavel, whom Felicia and Cash met back in Volume 3 in the Survival of the Fittest story arc. Well, the design was found in his research, and once the PRV is inserted into a subject, it allows the VMS to remotely release a substance into the subject's bloodstream if they so choose. So in the case with Skinner, it would release gold dust and kill him. So the VMS, they recovered Skinner in Taipan during World War II, and they inserted the PRV device into his body. And ever since, they've had Skinner's suite on a leash, and they've been using him as an agent in the VMS. Issue 30, The Blacklist, Part 3 of 6. We have a flashback to 1929, to the day that Henry proposed to Pearl. They were listening to an old single Henry recorded back when he was trying to be a singer, and he puts it on the record player, and the song goes, "I was coming to the crossroads of an alley and a street when I spied a figure standing in the early morning heat. Her name was Pearl, but a flower she was, a flower of blackest sun. She was standing very still with her face raised to the sky, and I knew at that very moment I'd love her till I die, the one I'd ask to be my wife." I'm sure it sounded better in Henry's song. And then after playing the song for Pearl, he asks Pearl, "So, Pearl Jones, will you let me make an honest vampire out of you?" And she said yes, and they got married. Back to 1954, Henry is still bedridden. Calvin and Pearl by his side. Pearl and Calvin share stories about Henry and how great he is. They reminisce and go on, but eventually Pearl has to leave for the day to continue on her mission of killing the vampires in Hollywood. Calvin tries to tell her to stay with Henry and he'll go out, but Pearl says that this is personal for her and she wants Calvin here. He's the only one that she can trust. So Pearl and Skinner, they continue on the mission. They arrive at their next target, a casting director named Donnie Dunnigan. As they arrive, a grenade gets tossed into the back seat of their car, and Skinner yells, "Out now!" And he tackles Pearl out of the car just in time to save them both from being engulfed in the grenade's blast. Now this Danny Donegan, smoking a cigar, has a machine gun and he is firing at the two of them. He was prepared for them. Skinner and Pearl run and head out to the trees. Skinner notices the bullets being used on them are gold. Pearl deduces that word must be out on the two of them. Skinner eventually walks out from the trees that they were hiding in. Skinner, he ain't hiding no more. He's a Wild West gunslinger after all. So with his pistols, he shoots and hits this Danny Donegan in his chest. And Skinner comments to himself, "Old boy's still got it." And Pearl to him says, "Come on, Jesse James, before they get away." Skinner to this says, "Pfft, Jesse was a pussy." The two head inside the mansion, and Skinner manages to find a secret button under this Danny's pool table that opens up a secret entrance leading to a secret underground passage. The two head down the secret passage, and it leads to a getaway boat and some Carpathian vampires. Skinner tells Pearl to head for the boat, and he'll deal with the vampires. Skinner fights them. Pearl runs for the boat. She jumps off the dock and lands on the boat. She then jumps through the boat's window. There are a whole bunch of the Carpathian vampires inside, and they have coated their fingernails in gold. Pearl takes on a whole bunch of them, but she takes some damage, being scratched by their gold fingernails and being bitten into. She eventually passes out. When she wakes up, Skinner has killed the rest of the vampires in the area, and he is feeding her some of his blood to heal her up. He informs her that blood from their own kind speeds up the healing. Pearl, she wants to go after the rest of the targets on the Blacklist. She feels that they are behind the attacks on Henry and her. She figures at most there's only 5 names left now. Skinner seems a little bit surprised that Pearl wants to keep going and she's so forceful about it, like she's got nothing left to lose. Pearl admits that she's just scared of losing Henry and she just can't go back there to the hospital to see him right now. It hurts too much. She then says to Skinner, "Take me to the next target, please." She then says, "Please, take me." And then, in the heat of the moment, and through their bonding, the two of them then kiss. And eventually things escalate, and they begin having sex. And at that very moment, Henry, back at the VMS headquarters, he sits up in his hospital bed, somehow, I guess, sensing that Skinner and Pearl are banging. He's got that intuition. And he awakens and asks Kelvin by his bedside, "Where's Pearl?" Issue 31, The Blacklist, Part 4 of 6. Pearl, she is back at the VMS HQ with Henry, who is now awake. He asks her, "What I miss?" And Pearl replies, "Nothing much." She tells him about Skinner working for the VMS now and how they have him on a leash and how the two of them are going on missions killing the California coven of vampires. And once she does that, the two of them won't have to run anymore and they can just live in peace. The two then look at a photo album of them over the years. The first photo of them is in 1954, very recent, and then right after Taipan in 1945, and then in 1941 in Hawaii, and then in 1932 their previous house, 1929 their wedding day, 1925 when they just first started dating. Pearl tells Henry that she won't be able to stop herself next time. She will want to turn Henry. If he's ever on death's door again, she's gonna do it. A nurse comes by to change Henry's IV. Henry tells Pearl that we can do this later. He's not going anywhere, and Pearl should do what she needs to do. So Pearl, she goes to find Skinner's suite. Skinner, he is already preparing to leave for the next target without her. Pearl tells Skinner to give her at least an hour and then she'll be ready to go. But Skinner says there's only 2 names left on the list, and intelligence has BD Bloke as the coven leader, and he's out in the desert. Skinner, he ain't waiting for her. Pearl starts talking about them having sex in the cave. She says, "Look, Skinner, about what happened in the cave earlier?" And Skinner, he downplays it. He says, "We banged, so what?" He then calls Pearl just a dumb bitch he found in a ditch. He only turned her because he knew that she would go after BD Bloke and the rest of those vampires years ago back in the 1920s. The only reason he hasn't killed her since then is because, he says, the bottom line is, I don't care enough about you to bother killing you. You were nothing to me then, and you're nothing to me now except a passing amusement. Now let go of the bike before I eat your effing throat." Skinner then rides his motorcycle away from Pearl. Despite Skinner Sweet's tough exterior and reputation, it's clear that he is really nothing more than an angsty, in-love teenager when it comes to Pearl, although he'll never admit it. Pearl, she goes back to talk with Agent Bixby and Kelvin, and after their conversation, Pearl deduces that the old prop graveyard way out in the desert may be the next place to check out for this Hollywood blacklist. She's not 100% sure, but she's gonna check it out. Now, the Hollywood prop graveyard is where the Hollywood studios would throw out all of their old props from the movies when they were done with them. Pearl, she heads out there. We see out in this hot, sunny desert dump, in this prop graveyard, Pearl is looking around, and there are all these things from old movies: a big clown head, an old sword, some fake signs and big letters. Pearl, she's walking, and she sees him. She sees BD Bloke. BD is wearing a cloak to hide himself from the sun. He lifts his hood and reveals his burned and scarred face. He tells Pearl, "At first I wasn't pleased with this location, but now I've come to love it. All the pictures I made for you people, all the dreams I conjured for you. This place is a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, a peek at the truth." So apparently, BD Bloke didn't die back in Volume 1 when he burned in the sun. Someone pulled him out of the fire before he was finished off. Pearl whips out her gun and fires it at BD Bloke. And just then, some other Carpathian vampires, also in robes protecting them from the sun, they jump into action to fight Pearl. Pearl is shooting and clawing at all of them. She's killing some of them, but the Carpathians are overpowering her. BD Bloke tells the vampires attacking Pearl, "Don't kill her, she is our guest." Pearl tells Bloke, "A trash heap in the middle of the desert? Pretty pitiful for a coven leader." And BD Bloke replies, "Oh, I'm not the coven leader, I gave up that title long ago. I gave it up to the one who saved us, the one who forgave me and came back to rule, our true leader, your old friend, Hattie Hargrove." Hattie Hargrove, also an American vampire, smiles, and we see the scars on her face coming from her lips still pronounced after all these years. And Hattie tells Pearl, "Hi there, Miss Pearly. Miss me?" Issue 32, The Blacklist, Part 5 of 6. Hattie Hargrove, mocking Pearl, says, "What's the matter, Pearly? No hug? No kiss for your best friend?" Hattie orders the Carpathians to chain Pearl up, and Hattie explains what happened to her. So when Pearl and Hattie fought previously, it ended with Pearl shoving a gold star through Hattie's face, and it almost killed her. But BD Bloke found her and saved Hattie. He didn't save her for altruistic purposes, though. He saved her to send her to a place to be tortured and experimented on, so that the Carpathian vampires could discover what the American vampires were weak to. Hattie, she was locked up for several years until she eventually escaped. Hattie's next goal was to find Pearl and get her revenge on Pearl. But Hattie, she couldn't find Pearl, and she thought that she maybe never would. Hattie, she was alone for many years after that, not knowing what to do with her life. She would still go to the movies, always a favorite pastime of hers. And one day she saw a movie, a horror film, about a woman injected with mutant spider blood who kills people. It was the kind of movie that Hattie and Pearl would have laughed at before, but this time it inspired Hattie. See, the mutant Spider-Woman in the movie, she was dealt a bad deal in her life, but the woman in the film made it work for her. People were scared of her. They thought she was a monster. But the woman in the movie turned it around, accepted it, and she was reborn a queen. Hattie, she felt this for herself too. She felt that she had a purpose. She hunted down some Carpathians and killed them. Then she went into the sewers to find BD Bloke. Now, BD Bloke and his vampire coven were forced to retreat into the sewers. The VMS were too powerful for them, especially with Skinner Sweet on the VMS's side now. Life was not good for BD Bloke and his coven. Hattie, she found BD Bloke and proposed a business proposition for him. Instead of them fighting, she offered that they put their heads together. Hattie showed the dead Carpathians that she had killed, and she exerted her dominance. Beady Bloke decided to throw in with Hattie and accept her as their queen, and in return, Hattie would help them prosper again. Now Hattie's coven with Beady Bloke is thriving. Now back to the current time. Pearl, she threatens Hattie and tells her that the VMS is coming for them, and her and Skinner have been working their way through the blacklist of Hattie's and Beady Bloke's accomplices. Hattie replies, "That little list you had? Those names were just sacrifices to keep you busy. You worked your way through the short list of my minions I let you find. They were the distraction while I readied my real forces for what's coming. A full-scale invasion of the VMS headquarters. A complete eradication of the base and the vassals in it." As Hattie says this, we see the VMS West Coast HQ has an army of Carpathian vampires scaling the building's walls, ready to attack. Hattie, she adds, "This is just like Skinner and I planned." Pearl is shocked. Skinner had betrayed her in the VMS and is secretly working with Hattie? Hattie explains that Skinner has been her silent partner from the start. She went to him and told him that if he helped her grow this coven and fight the VMS when it was all over, she would take out that nasty little device in Skinner's chest and free him from the VMS's leash. Pearl, she is now worried what Hattie is planning at the VMS HQ, and she worries about Henry, who's there. Hattie tells her, "Don't look so sad, Pearly. It's fun being single." "Alright, I have to run. Don't want to miss all the fun." So Hattie is definitely planning on killing Henry. Pearl, she yells at Hattie as Hattie is walking away. Hattie, she leaves Beady Bloke alone with Pearl in the prop graveyard, where she expects him to torture her. Now Beady Bloke, he's gonna enjoy himself. He's stabbing Pearl with the gold trident prop from the movie Atlantis, which is the movie that Pearl had a small part in as an actress back in Volume 1. So while Beady Bloke is torturing Pearl, over at the VMS West Coast HQ, the vampires in Hattie's coven have breached the walls and are inside the base, fighting everyone within. The VMS agents, they're firing back, but Skinner Sweet, he is assisting in the attack on the Carpathian side, killing VMS agents. Agent Bixby calls Sweet two-faced scum. Bixby, he begins running for the computer console, which has the button which will release the gold in Skinner Sweet's PRV valve, and that will kill him. But Skinner stabs Bixby through his chest, causing him to fall to the floor. And Bixby tells Skinner, "Go ahead, blow up the console. It can still be activated by a radio signal from any VMS base in the world." And Skinner replies, "I'll let you reflect on the stupidity of your last statement." Skinner, he shoots and destroys the computer console. Back over to Pearl. Beady Bloke is continuing to torment her. He is going to finally kill Pearl, but before he can, Calvin Poole arrives in the nick of time to save Pearl by decapitating Beady Bloke. Calvin then helps Pearl to his car nearby, and the two of them start speeding back to the VMS HQ. Issue 33, The Blacklist, Part 6 of 6. In the car ride on the way over, Pearl asks Calvin why didn't he stay with Henry and protect him? And Calvin says, "If I stayed with him, Henry would be saying the same thing to me except about you. He'd be saying why I didn't save you instead of him, so I made the call." Pearl just hopes they are not too late when they arrive. At VMS HQ, Skinner, Hattie, and some of Hattie's coven have made their way to where Henry is resting. Hattie talks to Henry a bit. She admits that she actually had a bit of a crush on him back in the day. Henry, he is still zonked out, almost unconscious. Hattie, she calls one of her Carpathian vampire minions over to her. She slits this Carpathian vampire's wrist and wants the Carpathian's blood to enter into Henry's mouth. Skinner, he says, "Oh, hang on. This wasn't part of the plan." Skinner says killing Henry, putting him out of his misery is one thing, but turning him into one of them, into a Carpathian, is something else. Hattie explains, what better punishment for Pearl than having the great love of her life turned into one of my slaves, a monster who hates her. So Hattie wants to turn Henry into an evil Carpathian vampire by pouring Carpathian blood into his mouth. This had me thinking, technically, if the Carpathian blood went into Henry's mouth, would he turn into a Carpathian, or would he turn into an American vampire like Skinner did? Maybe Skinner's Sweet was special, and something about his genetics made the Carpathian blood turn him into an American vampire, but it wouldn't work the same way for Henry. I don't know. Feel free to argue the made-up convoluted Scott Snyder rules of vampire blood in the comment section. Anyway, Skinner Sweet is against this. Hattie accuses Skinner of being in love with Pearl. Skinner denies it and says, "I just don't like the idea of more of them walking the earth." Hattie replies, "Keep telling yourself that, lover boy. Now get out of my way, you whipped little dog." Skinner is not going to stand idly by with that level of disrespect. Skinner smacks Hattie in the face, tells her that she is forgetting her place. He says, "Listen up, skag. In the end, you and Pearl, you're my minions. I made her, and you too. I'm your daddy." Hattie, she attacks Skinner back, and she yells at her coven to get him. They're all fighting Skinner Sweet now, surrounding him, but Pearl has finally arrived, and she tells them to step away from the cowboy, all of you. Hattie retorts, "Pearl? Didn't you hear, pal? Your part was cut already." And Pearl snaps back, "Yeah, I wrote myself back in, bitch." Hattie and Pearl start fighting. Time for a rematch. Claws out. They are slashing at each other. Hattie kicks Pearl back. Hattie then grabs a bone from one of the skeletons that were displayed behind some glass, and she starts swinging at Pearl with it. Pearl dodges the swings and punches Hattie in the face. Hattie then pulls out a gold knife, but then, blam! Hattie gets shot in the head by Henry. Henry has awoken from being zonked out, and he pulled the trigger. Pearl looks at Henry and says his name, and Henry replies, "Hey, you." And then he passes out. Pearl, she runs over to Henry. Henry seems to be dying. He used his last bit of energy to save Pearl. Pearl, she can't hear Henry's pulse. She slits her wrist to pour some of her American vampire blood into Henry's mouth, trying to turn him, to save him. She says, "Please come back to me." But she is too late. Henry is already dead. Calvin Poole, he kills the rest of the Carpathian vampires in the room. Pearl, still with Henry, is shaking him, telling him to drink it. She says, "Henry, please don't leave me, please, please." Pearl, she lies on the floor with Henry cradling his body as Calvin and Skinner Sweet watch onward with the burning flames of the VMS headquarters around them. In the aftermath, Pearl, she is moving out of the home that her and Henry shared. She's talking to Calvin, saying her goodbyes to him. Calvin tells her that the VMS is rebuilding, and Agent Bixby survived and is recovering. Calvin also tells her that Skinner Sweet escaped, and someone removed his PRV valve. The only way it could have been removed is if someone gave him blood to heal, blood like his own, to keep him from dying. Calvin, he suspects that Pearl helped Skinner, but he's not going to push it with her. He says, "I'm not asking you anything except this, Pearl. You're safe, aren't you?" And Pearl replies, "Safe? From Skinner? He and I will never meet again." So although it's not explicitly stated, I believe that Pearl aided Skinner, helped him remove the PRV valve, and fed Skinner some of her blood so that he could survive the device's removal. Calvin, he asks Pearl to consider staying with the VMS. There's still lots of work to do. It might help her keep her mind off things. But Pearl, she doesn't want that right now. Calvin gives Pearl a letter that Henry wrote for her before he died. It was found in the VMS wreckage. The two of them say their goodbyes. Calvin asks her where she's going next, and Pearl says maybe back home where she grew up. Pearl, out on the open road now, reads the note that Henry wrote her. The note says, "Pearl, if you're reading this, it means, well, I guess it means my part of our song ended a little earlier than I'd have liked. And for that, hun, for bowing out early, I'm so sorry. But what I want you to know, Pearl, here and now, is what I'm not sorry for. I'm not sorry for making the choice together not to turn me. See, the thing is, I've always known you were part of something bigger than me, than us. I knew it before you became a vampire, and I knew it after. You've got more life, more fire in you than a normal body'll hold, girl. Me, though, I'm different. I had a rough time of it as a young man, and in music and life, all I ever wanted was some kind of home, of peace, and for a long time I found that with you. It's where I want to stay now, Pearl, home. Even though I can see you're ready for something new. I know you want the something new to be with me, but I'm so tired, Pearl. Tired and grateful for all the times we've had together. From here to the other side of the world and back, I'm grateful for it all. Best thing I ever did with my life happened on the morning in 1925 when I asked a girl to join me for a cup of coffee. I love you, Pearl, now and always. Now go on, no more looking back, only forward. My part might be over, but your song is only just beginning." Issue 34, The Gray Trader. This is the final issue of the first cycle of American Vampire. It is 1954. We are in New Mexico, the home of Abelina Book, now 64 years old. She was the wife of James Book, and is the mother of Felicia Book. She is watching TV, living a quiet, single life, keeping to herself. She goes by the fake name Lisette Rodriguez. A man pulls up in a car in front of Abelina's house. The man claims he is from the Census Bureau. He asks to speak to Miss Rodriguez. Abelina knows that this man's story is bullshit. She pulls out a shotgun and threatens the man and asks him, "Who am I?" The man says he doesn't know. Abelina repeats, "Who am I?" The man is sticking to his story with his hands raised in the air now. He says, "Miss Rodriguez, please, Abelina shoots the man, but her shotgun was only filled with dimes, not bullets. It'll hurt the man, but not kill him. She points the gun again at the man and repeats herself. "Who am I?" The man knows who she is. He says, "You're Abelina Book, former senior agent of the VMS. You were expelled in 1949. Eventually, the two of them head inside Abelina's home to talk more. The man introduces himself. His name is Gene Bunting. He is the nephew of his uncle, Will Bunting, the author of the novel Bad Blood, all about Skinner Sweet's exploits, and James' book that we saw from Volume 1 of American Vampire. Apparently, Will Bunting didn't die in 1925 as we thought. He died to the world, to his family, but he was still alive, and the VMS took him in, and he served as their bookkeeper for the VMS all the way into the 1950s. When Will was nearing the end of his life, he showed up to his nephew Gene's house. Gene was a journalist with no work, and Will recruited Gene into the VMS to be their replacement bookkeeper after he left. And eventually Will did die, peacefully at VMS HQ. Gene tells Abelina that his uncle Will never got over Skinner Sweet being recruited into the VMS, or Abelina being fired. Abelina, she actually worked a mission with Skinner Sweet as her partner. She couldn't get over her hatred of him though. And Abelina on their mission, where they were hunting some sort of weird crocodile, lizard, monster vampire or something, She couldn't resist the temptation to try and kill Skinner. And in the middle of the mission, she pointed her gun at his head, and Skinner noticed it, and he let the crocodile monster that they were trying to fight loose, and that monster bit into Abelina. But in the end, Skinner, he killed the monster, and he saved Abelina's life before she died from the monster's bite. Skinner couldn't risk the VMS turning on his PRV valve to kill him, so he needed to keep Abelina alive. Anyway, Gene explains he is here to see Abelina because he is desperate. He's the bookkeeper, see? He reads all the reports of the various VMS agents and compiles them. He has a bird's eye view of everything in the VMS, and he has noticed lately various incidents happening all over the world. In England, in Iceland, and Egypt, as well as things happening in America. Gene very ominously says, well, it sounds ridiculous, but I've become worried. I'm afraid that... And Abelina says, what? Say it already. And Gene continues, well, I think he's in America. And Abelina replies, the Gray Traitor? Abelina asks if Gene told any of his superiors of his theories. Gene says, I haven't told them. It's my own hunch, but I have evidence from seismic data to more ominous recordings like communities vanished overnight. I can tell you about a settlement on Indian lands near Arizona. Abelina asks, what does any of this have to do with me? And Gene explains, well, the reason he is here is because, well, back when Abelina was on that mission with Skinner Sweet, when she got attacked by that weird crocodile monster, well, apparently that monster bit her, and evidence suggests that those that get bit by that monster and survive the venom sometimes have visions of the future. Unsettlingly accurate premonitions. And she is the only person to have been bitten by one in about 1,000 years. So he's wondering, can she see the future? Abelina says she's sorry. She can't help. Gene tries to convince her. He says, I know what using the ability does. I've read about it. I mean, how it alerts others. But Miss Book, if he is out there, the Gray Traitor, it means the end of this place. If we don't act, not this house, not this state, this country. He could attack at any time the forces he might have amassed already. Abelina wants Gene to leave. She doesn't want any part of this. She can't help him. Gene, he heads out. He says goodbye to Abelina. Before he leaves, Gene tells Abelina that her daughter, Felicia, is now the director of the VMS. Abelina says, I didn't ask, but thank you. Gene then drives away and drives to a nearby inn to stay the night. The Gray Traitor appears to emerge from the ground, his hand popping out of the earth. The Gray Traitor then slowly walks his way over to Gene's door. He kind of just looks like a creepy guy in a suit. Gene, he hears the noises coming from outside his door. He gets nervous, he grabs his gun. The Gray Traitor is just outside his room. Gene realizes his worst fear is happening. The Gray Traitor is after him. Gene jumps out the window in the room he is staying at, and he runs to his car. He gets in the car and he tries to speed away. But the Gray Traitor somehow has an army of creatures emerging from the ground, and they hold on to Gene's car, and then they grab onto Gene and they slowly pull Gene down into the earth, into a pit, into the parking lot. The Gray Traitor casually walks over to the pit and jumps in, and the pit closes in around him and turns back to normal, and we see only Gene's glasses are left behind. The thing is though, we gotta pause the story and rewind a bit, back to when Gene was leaving Abelina's house, because everything that just happened after he left Abelina's house was actually just a premonition of Abelina's from her premonition ability that she acquired from the venom from this weird monster species. So, once again, Gene is leaving. Abelina and him are talking and saying their goodbyes. And then Abelina warns him. She says, Gene? Gene replies, yeah? And she says, nothing, just don't stop anywhere tonight. Drive straight back to base. So she warned Gene to not stay at that inn tonight, saving his life from the Gray Trader. As Gene drives off, a voice is talking to Abelina and it asks, is he gone? And Abelina says, he's gone. And the voice says, you used your powers. Did you see more than what he asked to know? And Abelina says, yes. Yes, I did. And then we see a 2-page splash page teasing future storylines. Abelina, she then goes downstairs to her basement and she continues talking to this mysterious voice. It asks her, how much more did you see? And Abelina answers, all of it. So whatever this premonition was, she saw all of the future with it, relating to the Gray Trader. We see who she is talking to. It is some odd-looking monster. I'm not quite sure who that is. And with that, we end Volume 5, and we end the first cycle of American Vampire. Alright, so that was the conclusion of American Vampire, the first cycle. I thought the Blacklist story arc was really fun. Having Pearl and Skinner team up, Skinner being in the VMS now, and them going on these missions through Hollywood to all these fancy places was immense fun. I loved it. I liked how Hattie Hargrove and BD Bloke came back into the story. Full circle now. Characters from Volume 1 returning now in Volume 5, and we get to see this epic throwdown between everyone, and we have the VMS HQ being burned down. Really cool stuff, really cool fights going down. Really fun. I loved it. But of course, we did have the death of Henry. Frickin' Henry. Come on, man. Just drink the goddamn blood and become an American vampire and live a happy life with Pearl. But no, the dude spent 30 years living with her and never became a vampire, refused, and now he's dead. He's dead. You could have just became a vampire, and if you didn't like it, you could have killed yourself. They could have stabbed you with some gold. You would have been done, but no. Now you're dead, Henry. Man, it was really annoying. Really annoying turn of events with Henry. But anyway, let's move on to the Gray Trader story arc now. That one issue that sort of sets stuff up for the future. I liked Gene Bunting and learning that Will Bunting was like the bookkeeper for the VMS, and now Gene followed in his uncle's footsteps, so that was really fun. I liked seeing Abelina. Interesting to check back in on her. Seeing her now as this older woman who's bitter, alone. So interesting to see that play out. I thought it was pretty random that she got bitten by this weird crocodile vampire species, and now she can see the future. Okay. I didn't like that. That was dumb. Didn't like that. And this Gray Trader, I don't know what to think of him. He's kind of weird. We don't really know much about him. Just a guy in a suit that popped out of the ground. He seems pretty ominous, though. But really, will he be a more ominous villain than Dracula? Dracula was pretty hard to top. Anyway, we'll have to see how the stuff with the Gray Trader plays out in the second cycle of American Vampire. But I'm a little bit mixed on the Gray Trader for now. But overall, I like this volume. I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was a good send-off, at least in the Blacklist, for the first cycle. It was good stuff. I'm going to give this volume an 8 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Next week, I'm going to be coming back, not with American Vampire. I'm going to be coming back with The Boys, Dear Becky. That series finally wrapped up, so now I'm going to finally do the video breaking down that miniseries. So that's going to be fun. And then I will be back the week after that with American Vampire Volume 6. And we'll see where American Vampire goes from there. See y'all then.